Hey everyone, Rachel Jensen here, broker owner of Luna Realty Belize on the beautiful island of Ambergris Caye. Today we are in the inbox with question number 44, and this is when we answer questions that have been asked by folks like you about the real estate industry here. Now, if you are new to this series, of course, listen to this one, get the information, and then make sure you're starting at the beginning as well to listen to the other 43 questions that have been asked. There's some really great information on this series here, and things that I think will be very helpful for people looking at property here. Now, Scott asked this question for this week, and he says, I have a rental here in Belize, like a rental property here in Belize. Do I need to hire a rental management company or can I do it myself? So technically, the answer is if you do not have status here, if you're not a resident, if you don't have a work permit, if you're not a citizen, then you do need to have a property or rental manager who is doing that for you. Belize here considers property and rental management a job. And if you don't have a work permit or you're not a resident or you're not a citizen, then you do need to find a rental management company to take care of the rentals for you. Now, is that always enforced? No. So, it really can be up to you, but I do want to say by Belizean law, that is what is required. So I'm going to give you a couple of considerations when it comes to the Belizean law for you to have in your back pocket, for you to understand, for you to know, and then from there, you can make your decisions. However, you do need to know, and this is a really, really important one, for you to rent out your property to a tourist or on a nightly basis or on a long-term rental basis. Long-term is defined as 6 months or more here, to a non-status renter. Non-status renter meaning they don't have a work permit, they're not a resident, they are not a citizen, then you do need to have your Belize Tourism Board license. If you are coming into the country, if you're buying property that has never had a BTB license before, you will need to do that process, and you'll hire somebody locally to do that process for you. Likely you could do it yourself, of course, but likely you'll hire somebody to do it for you, especially if you're not here full time, because there's a lot of in-person things that need to be done. But that process can take anywhere from 8 to 12 months. 8 to 12 months to get a BTB license here on Ambergris Caye. I know in other parts of the country that timeline is shorter, but here on the island right now, it takes about 8 to 12 months from the time that you are applying for the permit, the BTB permit, to actually getting that. Now, once you are registered with the BTB, there is going to be a 9% hotel tax, and that is going to be also required for long-term rentals and of course for nightly rentals as well. And so do anticipate for that to be charged. That typically gets charged to the renter though. So bear that in mind as you are penning out numbers. But again, that gets charged to the renter, so it wouldn't typically come out from your cut there. Now, if you are not qualified to work in Belize and you're going through that BTB process, you really should have a local representative who is taking care of that process for you. They'll represent you and really be the one who's navigating through that process for you, because as I mentioned, rental management is considered a job here in Belize, and if you don't have the legal status, then technically you can't be applying for it yourself. Now, of course, I've heard stories about people who've done it themselves, but I'm just giving you the law here as it is. Now, if your property is in a strata complex, so typically a strata complex is what we consider condos or tiny homes. And so if there's an HOA bylaw, typically, if it's a strata title or if there's HOA bylaw within this development that you're owning in, they are required to have one property manager for nightly rentals. And this is a way for the Belize Tourism Board to streamline that 9% hotel tax. If they had 10 different rental management companies within one complex, it would be a lot more complicated to issue the licensing and all of that. So do know that if you're buying within a strata property or you're buying within a development with HOA bylaws, they typically define in here who that rental management company is going to be. And depending on the HOA, there could be flexibility between the long-term renter and the nightly rental management company. I know there are some complexes here that will require that you use them for nightly rentals. However, long-term rentals, there is more flexibility on that if you're renting to somebody who has a status here. I know there's a lot of nitty-gritty details. Try not to get bogged down by them, but it is, again, important for you to know what the laws look like here. Now, if you own a single family home, there is more flexibility, of course, when it comes to rental and property management compared to the above where there would be HOA bylaws, but most people do have a hired team that is taking care of things for them. And I know a lot of times when people are looking at rental properties here, they're looking at the rental management fees, right? In the States, it's typically 10 to 15% for a vacation rental. In Belize, it tends to be higher, anywhere from 20 to 50%. And then depending what's in that cost, what's in that fee, there sometimes are additional fees for reservation acquisition fees, or cleaning, which is not always included in the percentage. I have a whole other session on that, but I know sometimes people are just looking at the net numbers and trying to find ways to mitigate expenses. I would be really careful about mitigating having a professional team, somebody who's here on site taking care of things for you, because there are a lot of considerations that you need to bear in mind as the owner of the property. So these were just a couple that I was thinking of as we were putting this together. But one is, how are you going to acquire the renters? Where are you getting them from? I know a lot of times people are so partial to Airbnb because maybe that's been a system that's worked for them in the past. Typically, if somebody's running an Airbnb, they will either be close to the Airbnb to be able to manage it, to be able to clean it, where they have a really trusted team there. I would say this is a very difficult assumption here in Belize, that you would have a trusted team, especially if they're not hired. If maybe you're doing on more of a one-on-one basis, or one reservation by one reservation, is going to be very hard to get that commitment from somebody. But another question to consider is, how are you going to ensure that your property is clean between renters? And this is an island where people don't like to tell you no. So you might meet somebody here great when you're down here for a month getting your property all prepared. They seem wonderful. They tell you that they're here to help you out, that they'll be there at your beck and call. And then it's Sunday, and it's Sunday fun day and family day, and you're having somebody to come and check in that day. But you know what? They decided to go to the beach with their family instead. And that person never showed up because they were doing you a favor, or maybe that is not really their real job, right? And so you have to bear those things in mind. Also, how are you going to collect money? And also, how are you going to pay taxes here in Belize? I mentioned too that 9% hotel tax, you do need to be paying that. And then there is rental income tax here, although it's low, 1.75% for nightly rentals, 3% for long-term rentals. There is still a tax that needs to be paid. If you have a rental management company, they typically take care of that for you on your behalf. Also, how are you going to check in on your property? How are you going to make sure that everything is looking good? These are all things that really are geared more towards somebody who's not going to physically be here. But I know some people are like, oh, well, we can set up cameras, we can do this. It's like, it's not quite the same as being able to physically walk through and make sure everything's going well. From a camera, you can't turn on a faucet, you can't see if the toilet is running. And so it is important to have those people here on the ground to make sure that it is going smoothly. Also, who's going to show your property when you're not available, if you are thinking about the long-term basis? And this is something that has recently come up within our firm. I know we had one of our clients reach out and ask if we could show their property to a long-term renter. And technically, we're not in rental management right now at this point. Of course, we were willing to do the favor for him. But if you don't have somebody who you can trust, then this makes it a lot more challenging. And then also, are you able to coordinate fixing issues from afar? I can tell you from living here, even just fixing issues, whether it's plumbing or electrical or whatever, from here is challenging, is difficult. We were just waiting a week for our bathrooms here in the offices to get fixed from the landlord, and things like that. You have to think about from the rental perspective too, because you can't let a toilet get unplumbed if it's, I guess, have a toilet get plumbed if there are issues, if you have a renter there, right? They can't wait a week for that. So things like that are really, really important. And I would highly recommend that you just understand what the fees are and acknowledge those fees, and use a professional company that's based here who can take care of all this for you. And if you want to bring in renters, right? If you love Airbnb and you have a passion for that, well then yeah, bring in renters, talk to the rental management company and see how they can accommodate you. A lot of rental management companies will reduce their fees if you're the one who's bringing in the guests, and then you'll all coordinate. They will make sure that that time is blocked out on their calendar when you have your guests coming in. But they'll still be here to greet. They'll still be here to make sure that the property is running smoothly. So I just wanted to get these questions answered for you, because sometimes I think that when people are looking at net numbers and trying to cut out expenses, they're looking at cutting out the wrong expenses, when maybe at the end of the day, it's just not a fit with the rental management company. There are multiple companies here who can help you. And so you just need to find the one that will jive the best with you. So if you are looking though to come down here and spend more significant time down here, here's a free e-copy of the Belize Lifestyle Guide. This is one that I wish I had when I moved down here 11 years ago, but we have assembled it for you now. Feel free to reach out to us, info@lunarealtybelize.com, info@lunarealtybelize.com. We'll get these get this over to you. And we have a wonderful team here who I work beside on a daily basis to make sure that we are sending properties and listings and information over to our clients. So if you're somebody who is looking for more information about the real estate market, you want to start exploring listings, feel free to reach out to us. Our team would love to help you. Again, my name is Rachel Jensen with Luna Realty Belize, and we hope to see you here in paradise soon. Bye, everyone.